Yo, what is happening? This is Coach Joel. This is the Icon Fitness Podcast, where we bring to you the best of the best to help you change your life. You're going to find actionable goals and actionable steps that you can take from this podcast for you to be able to start living a healthier and happier life. If you're joining on the Icon Blueprint Facebook page, welcome. It's awesome to be able to have you live. And today we're going to be jamming on a topic that I personally love. I get geeky on this, and it's self-awareness. Being able to be aware of your own thoughts, your own actions, and what you're doing day to day and into the future, crucial for your success. And I have the man, the myth, the legend joining from the East Coast. I have Brian Velez, who is a native New Yorker who builds, operates, and advises businesses. He has experience in the private and public corporate finance sectors, and now is the owner and operator of a personalized health and performance facility, OPEX, South Brooklyn. Brian has an extensive background in self-awareness, and I am freaking pumped to have him on the show today. So without further ado, let's bring Brian onto the show. Brian, what's up, man?
What's going on, Joel? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I saw on your Instagram earlier today, you're driving by and there's like literally boats floating in the road. What the heck is going on? This is in Brooklyn?
Yeah, so this is like on the Gowanus Canal. If anyone in Brooklyn knows what that is, I think it's the most toxic body of water in New York City. So it's actually pretty terrifying that it was kind of going onto the driveway. But
Yeah.
yeah, the snow and everything we had over the past couple of days has really kind of overflown onto the complex that I'm in. So it was kind of terrifying to see and drive by, but I think everything's okay today.
Are you worried about your business getting flooded?
You know what? I'm honestly more worried about my Jeep driving by every day. I always have this irrational fear that the asphalt that I'm driving on is going to collapse into the water. So
Sinkhole.
that's like my biggest fear, honestly. The business will be okay. We're like on the other side of it, but I'm,
Yes.
I'm worried about my car.
Are you worried about your car? Or are you worried about your life?
A little bit of both.
Okay. All right. Dude, I can respect that, man. I can
I can
respect
swim.
that.
It's all good. It's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. So, we met through a mutual coach, Marcus Gersey, and we have jammed on the phone a bunch of different times. And I was super stoked to be able to get you on this show. From everything that we've talked about, you have a wealth of knowledge, and you really want to dive into self-awareness, which I freaking love. But before we get going on that, I want to talk a little bit about your background here. You have a pretty extensive background in corporate finance, and then you went to owning a gym. Dude, that's they're on other sides of the planet here.
Sure.
So, can you give us a background of how you went from, right, corporate finance in, on the East Coast, which is huge, to owning a gym?
Yeah, absolutely. So just for some background, so I graduated from Columbia in 2014. So I was in engineering school actually. So I studied applied math and economics
Of course.
first, and then if anyone knows Columbia, so half the engineers go into engineering, the other half get poached into finance. So I was one of the people who
The other
was
half.
poached into finance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my friends kind of went that route too. Honestly, if you're not into engineering at that point in time, engineering is such a technical field. If you're not really into it and you're in New York City as an engineer, you're probably going to end up going into finance. Everyone kind of, and I'm not sure why everyone funnels into that. I mean, obviously it's a complementary skill set, but everyone kind of goes into that. So my first job out of college was at a small hedge fund, Xanthus Capital Management. We did event-driven long-short trading, so equities and options around
Mm,
earnings, mergers and acquisitions, pre-announcements, anything that was really actionable in the market.
yeah.
It was a fun job in the sense that I really got to see the other side of like really how it works in a hedge fund and how my job was to make money off of money. So that was really kind of the job.
Yes.
If you kind of think about that a little bit deeper, it seems kind of purposeless, right? You're not adding value to people's lives the same way I am right now owning and operating a facility, like a gym. So there was a little bit of discontent with myself in that job by itself. I felt like I wasn't doing much. I was just trying to make money. So I eventually pivoted to equity research, which is more of analyzing stocks and companies. So I ended up covering beverages, tobacco, and cannabis, which is a really cool sectors to publish on. So we were the analysts who were publishing whether to buy or sell a stock. So I worked under Vivian Azer. She's known as the cannabis queen. We actually took some of the first Canadian cannabis companies public in 2017. So that was a really interesting experience. I got to meet a lot of interesting
Wow.
entrepreneurs. I got to engage with a lot of high level management, C-level executives, and it was just a really, really interesting experience. And I had, meeting all the entrepreneurs, you watch them on TV, like on CNBC, getting interviewed, and they seem like these untouchable people. Like these are superhumans who are
Yes.
operating at the highest levels of performance. And it really is intimidating to start talking with them. But when I went to these conferences and actually had face-to-face conversations with them, I realized they were pretty similar to myself. And not to say that I'm at that level necessarily, but my point is that they're mortal just like us. There's nothing inherently special or privileged about them. They just followed their path and figured out what they wanted to do. And so, I realized for a bit working in equity research that I was almost playing fantasy football. That's kind of how I felt about the job. So we were making money. We were trying to tell people what stocks and companies to buy and making other people rich, right? These CEOs taking their companies public, we're making them rich, and we're sitting in our desks kind of talking about it, writing reports about the companies, but I wasn't actually playing in the game. And I use that analogy of fantasy football because I wanted to be on the field. I mean, I played sports my whole life. I'm a competitive guy. I want to be on the field. I want to be in the trenches operating a company. And as I reflected on my life, I'm thinking, okay, well, what am I good at? What am I interested in? Obviously, I have this finance and business background. I understand how companies work. But the one underlying passion, the one constant throughout my entire life was working out. So I played sports my entire life. I've been lifting weights since I was 15. Even after working 12, 13, 14 hours per day, I was going straight to Equinox to work out and lift weights.
Dang.
And I would be burnt out, stressed out. And I would always have this self-talk with myself about, okay, but this is what you love. Like working out, this is the best part of your day. And it would be 9 p.m., 10 p.m. in the gym by myself, telling myself this is what you love. And it's funny, sometimes the answer is right underneath your nose. And that's how I felt about the gym business. And so I had always been joking with June and Francesca, my two business partners, about opening up a gym. They were CrossFit coaches actually at a gym I used to be at maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And we've always hit it off. We were always good friends. They were actually finishing up their Masters of Sports Medicine at the time. And as soon as I started making money, I got my bonuses and I was feeling good about myself. I'm like, guys, I think we should do this. Like, we should try to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, that's how we ended up here. So we opened in August 2019. Not exactly the best time to open up a gym. Obviously, COVID followed up 6 months later. But honestly, still one of the best decisions of my life, and I'm super thankful that I kind of went through this whole process.
Yeah, man. And there's a couple of things you said in there that are really powerful. One of them is, you know, I think not that I think. I know that people put other influencers and other individuals in their lives on a pedestal. Like, oh my gosh,
Absolutely.
you know, Brian, he's just, dude, he's so smart, and I mean, he's the best, and he has no problems, you know, and you know, that word, that sentence that you said, that they're mortal just like us.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
so true, and we're talking about people millionaires, right?
Sometimes billionaires, right?
Sometimes billionaires, and when you actually sit down, they got the same issues we do, the same problems. They got
They
relationship
believe just
issues.
like us, right?
Yep, they have some self-talk issues, right? Have they refined it? Sure. Have they had business people in their corner? Have they had their own business coaches? Sure. But they still got those issues, right? And another thing that I liked what you said in there was talking about your self-talk. Sometimes it's right underneath your nose, right? It's the words coming out your mouth or the words that you're saying to yourself. And there's a lot of awareness in self-talk if you take a second and you actually listen, just like what you're saying. And so that's what we're rolling into today is self-awareness and being able to be aware and how we can take the appropriate steps to harness and utilize self-awareness to be able to get us to the point of going, you know what, I'm going to leave this really, lucrative job, and I'm going to go totally 180 and over in this direction. I think you're the best person to be able to talk about this. So diving into self-awareness, what is self-awareness to you? If you could describe it, and why is it so important?
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, I think a lot about self-awareness is understanding that we are both the object and the observer in our life. And really, self-awareness is just trying to discover yourself, right? We are on this endless journey trying to figure out who we are, what we are, how can we add value to the world, how can we leave a legacy, right? These are questions we should be asking ourselves kind of every day. And I think for me, the culmination of this kind of happened in my desk. I was probably at 10 p.m. in the office by myself one night at the bank, and I'm sitting in my cubicle thinking to myself, "Wow, I can't believe my life got to this point where I'm burnt out, my
Mm,
relationship is hurting, I have a lot of money but don't know how to spend it. I am barely working out to the level I used to work out at. I'm just not feeling great about myself." And I started to realize that every single decision that I made in my life brought me to that point in that cubicle, having that doubt in myself.
mm,
And if that's the case, then every single action that I take can influence my future. And so that forced me to kind of reflect and think about, okay, well, what is the future I want to lead? Where do I want my life to go? What's the path I want to take? Because clearly at some point, and I remember this too, being 21, 22, 23, I held working at a hedge fund or going to an investment bank as the absolute pinnacle of success. I mean, we were sort of brainwashed this in Colombia too. Every single one of my friends, and I'm Puerto Rican. I was raised in a single parent home. A lot of my friends at Columbia also came from single parent households. We're minorities, black, Spanish, doesn't matter. And we all had this, poverty mindset, this scarcity
mm.
mindset of we just need to get out there. We need to succeed. And the one way we knew how to succeed was we got to make money. I got to get paid. I need that bank account, right? And so for me, when I was conditioned to think, I was subconsciously conditioned to think that working at a hedge fund or investment bank would be the be all end all of my success. The world would open up to me, the stars will shine and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
And, it's so from the outside looking in, it seems like, oh, well, all these guys are making a ton of money. It's models and bottles. They're having so much fun. It's such a great job. But once you're actually in it, you realize it's really not that great. And I knew this because I was probably one of the youngest guys on the floor. And I worked with a lot of people in their mid 30s, early 40s, and they all had, it was mostly men, to be fair. My managing director, was a female. Um, none of them had healthy family relationships. They all had stressed out marriages, issues with their children because they're never home. And I'm 25, 26, or 24, 25, 26, listening to this. I'm thinking, wow, like I don't want my life to go down this path. Like I see where
Wow.
this is headed. I'm like, I need to get the fuck out as fast as possible.
Wow.
Because if I stay in this job, yeah, I'll get paid well and I'll get a lot of bonuses and everything will be great. But that's where my life is headed, right? And so it's up to me to change it.
That's incredible, dude. There's two things that you said in there. One is the scarcity mindset, right? And that is a huge thing. I talk to people a lot about the scarcity mindset. That had to be a turning point for you to reflect on that and go, "Oh man, like I was so scared that I wouldn't have enough that I chased in a direction that wasn't in congruency with what I truly wanted."
Hmm.
Where was that reflection point? Like how did you get to that point and to be able to be sitting there at 25 and for you to reflect and like listen to that and see it? Like how did you know that you didn't want to live that life? You're only 25 years old.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of pain, and I would even call it existential pain, right? Of
Wow.
not even knowing your purpose, right? Sitting in that cube, I'm thinking about, okay, well, if I wasn't doing this job, what would I want to be doing? And the one constant to my earlier point was, well, I love being in the gym. That's absolutely for sure. And I always have this frame of, I'm sure you're familiar with ikigai, right? It's your reason for being, it's your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's the intersection of your mission, your vocation, your profession, and your passion, right? And for me, I'm sitting at this job at 25 and a good corporate financial experience. Like I'm kind of getting into my own. I kind of know what I'm doing more or less. We're basically managing companies from a micro cap scale, from cannabis companies all the way up to mega cap companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, right? So I have a general idea of how a business should kind of operate and run.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, what am I really interested? Well, obviously, I'm interested in the gym. One of my good friends actually owned a CrossFit gym, so I already had this kind of the background of my head of, okay, I know what a CrossFit gym looks like, kind of how to operate it. And I started building out models for gyms, and I was in Excel at work, and I was like, you know what, this is totally doable. I can definitely do this. And it was the intersection of my profession and also my passion, right? And that's really
Mm-hmm.
how I kind of got to that point. I'm just leaning into my authenticity, right? This is just me. If you were into, movies, for example, and you had a financial background, well, then maybe you open up a production studio or something, right? It's just whatever is relevant to you, whatever is relevant to your passion, you have to kind of circle around that. And that's where the truth is. And that's where, fulfillment and passion and all these things kind of fit together.
And there's, I don't want to skim past this, because if there's anybody's listening right now, there's a high chance that somebody listening is going, I hate my job. Exactly what Brian's talking about. I hate my job and I do not want to be in it. But there's steps that you have to take. And I think one of the things that you said is really, really important is being able to go, if I wasn't in this cubicle, what would I be doing? That's the
Mhm.
subconscious being able to speak. We get caught so much in the conscious, right? Running
Sure.
numbers, I got to, pay my bills and so on, that we don't allow the subconscious to be able to go, you know what you truly want? This is what you truly want. And being able to do what you basically did is, one, the reflection, the self-awareness, but then two, the action behind it of going like, well, let me build out a couple Excels. I mean, how's that going to hurt anybody? I'm still at my job, but
Right.
you start taking the steps to it. And one of the drills that I make people do is, I'll ask them the question: are you living your best life right now? 9 out of 10, pretty much 10 out of 10 say no, right? Because
Sure.
they're doing something they don't want to do, or they're not at the point where they want to be. And then I'll say, hey, write down all the limiting factors. I'm gonna give you 3 minutes. What are the limiting factors to your life, right?
Mhm.
And people just start writing, just relationship stuff, and this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And that's the self-talk that's going on in people's head, that maybe they get incited. They're like, oh, well, if I was out of this cubicle, what would I do? But then they go, oh, but I'm this and I'm that and I'm, what would you tell people to be able to get over those limiting factors? Like, how do people go from, I don't want to be in this cubicle anymore, and I feel this passion, but I have these fears over here? How do people break through that point?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest points in my life was me Googling, I hate my job. And I've read probably every single article associated with that. And funny enough, I actually discovered the answers within podcasts. And so what I would do at my cubicle, and this is to consciously condition myself, right? I listen to podcasts of people telling their stories, entrepreneurs telling their stories about how they broke out of their 9 to 5. And after the first or second or third story, it sounds good. It's like, okay, you feel a little inspired, like, okay, this
Yeah,
is kind of doable. After the 50th episode you hear, you're like, okay, like, I think I could definitely do this. And after the 100th episode, you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. So
yeah,
to me, it was kind of going through that process of just hearing other people's stories. And that's why I think, even this podcast episode is such a good experience for myself, because I want to give back, because there were hundreds of podcast episodes that I've listened to that have absolutely inspired me to take change in my life. And sometimes we just need to hear stories from people, because there are a lot of people out there who have succeeded way more than I have, with way more disadvantages than me. And here I am sitting with an Ivy League degree at a great job, and I'm capable, I can
yeah.
speak well, all this kind of things. I'm like, okay, I can definitely be successful here. I just have to apply myself. And that's really kind of it. You have to. prime yourself mentally to give yourself the confidence to do it. And sometimes we just need to hear the stories of other people.
And so, are you saying that people need to listen to 100 episodes of podcasts? Is that what you're saying?
It's possible. Honestly, I did it. It worked for me. Or read books,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Everything kind of adds up to itself, right?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
would also add to that point too, it's everything that we intake, everything we consume, every type of media, whether it's music, Netflix shows, podcasts, all of these things leave a subconscious imprint in our brain.
Yes.
And I say this because a lot of us don't really think about the music we listen to, right? Like I'm born in Brooklyn. I love rap and hip hop. My favorite artists are Jay-Z, Kanye West, J. Cole. I listen to their songs and I internalize the lyrics. Like I could pick out lyrics where I'm just like, okay, that's exactly what's going on in my life, and it gives me self-belief. But if you're just mindlessly listening to, like, not to pick an artist, but like Future, for example, and you talk about women and drugs and all this stuff like that, if that's all you listen to, that's all you're ever gonna think.
Yeah.
These things actually influence your mind. And I would even go further to say things like Netflix, right? The shows that we watch. I love The Office. It's hilarious. It's a great show. Michael Scott is a great comedian.
Yeah.
It's super funny to watch. I could probably watch it every day with my fiance. It's not going to get me closer to my goals. I would rather watch something that's inspiring and motivating to me. So, like, me and my fiance actually just restarted Game of Thrones, and it's amazing just to see. Obviously, it's a great show, interesting in its own right, but it's amazing to see the characters develop, right? The unsung hero coming from nothing, whether it's Jon
Mm.
Snow or Daenerys Targaryen. And it's like seeing their rise to power and kind of what they do with their decisions and all their power. It's interesting and it's motivational. And I think the more we can surround ourselves with content that is fueling us or feeding our minds to kind of think in that right direction, it's a powerful thing. And it really is underutilized by people. The things we consume really, really have an impact in our lives.
Gosh, dude, that is such a fantastic point. And if everybody took a step back and we pulled out a blank piece of paper and we started writing down everything that we're consuming in a day, our music, social media, TV, radio, right? Other people, and we wrote it down. And at the end of
Mhm.
the day, we got to the bottom of it. You would be able to truly reflect on what is the message being delivered to your subconscious throughout the entire day, right? And
Mhm.
to your point, music matters, Instagram matters, Facebook
Mhm.
matters, blogs matter, vlogs matter. Everything that you're taking in is just priming your subconscious to your belief. This is why, guys, listen up right now. What's today? That today is February 3rd, 2021. There has been more depression, suicide, anxiety than ever before because what are we all listening to? Same message
Mhm.
over and over and over again, priming the subconscious. Whoa. Step back, guys, take a breath and realize that that circle outside of your own control is influencing you, just like what Brian is saying. And knowing those things, I mean, dude, that is such an incredible point just alone in that. And you know what, guys? You're going to have to listen to 100 episodes. Maybe that's what you're just going to have to do. And hopefully maybe this is just one of them. Um, what
I
would you
will just add to that. I
go
would just
ahead?
add to that point, though. The same way we kind of get into these cycles in a negative way, right? If we're watching the wrong things, if we're listening to the wrong things, if we're, reading the news, like listening to the news every day and just getting ourselves upset, the same way we can kind of get into this cyclical pattern in a negative way, it also works in a positive way too.
Mm,
If you build systems in your life where you are consciously and actively curating the things you see and listen to every single day, it's going to help you. When I was 21, my Instagram feed was probably bikini models, sports,
yes,
and
yes,
fitness,
yes.
right? I definitely stopped doing that after a certain age because I realized it wasn't adding any value to my life. Now my Instagram is probably more, politics, economy, markets, my friends that I follow, other business owners, entrepreneurs. It's just in alignment with the vision for my life. And I would just say, like, the we always need to ask yourself, are your actions in alignment with the vision for your life? Because there are a lot of things we do every single day where if you're like, okay, well, you say you want to be an entrepreneur or a CEO of a company, are you acting like an entrepreneur or CEO of a company? Like would Elon Musk, for example, act in the same way? Is he partying on weekends every single weekend? Probably not. I'd venture to say Elon Musk probably hasn't partied in quite a bit. I mean, it shows because he's getting a lot of work done. And so, we kind of get ourselves into these cycles with stuff. And at the same time, things can work negatively against us. If you realize that power, you can also apply it to yourself in a positive way as well.
Oh my gosh, dude. Yes, Brian. What a fantastic point. And this is one of the reasons why I make people list out their limiting factors, because then what can we do? Spin it, right?
Yep.
We can create daily affirmations of going like, yeah, I'm just not smart enough. That's why, I don't have the money. Spin it. I have plenty of money. I have more than I need, right? I am incredibly intelligent. And people will, people will, affirmations or blah, 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 right? But when you really start going, no, I am, I will, I have become. Those are powerful words, and people don't recognize the power of words. It's the most important thing in your life is exactly what you said in the beginning of the podcast. What's coming out below your nose, right? Are you spitting out gold, or are you spitting out, just pure garbage? Does it smell sweet, or does it smell like crap? And that is such a strong point of being able to, guys, if you want to change something, listen to Brian. Get onto your Facebook, get onto your Instagram, stop it. Anything that isn't driving you towards your goal, start muting it, start deleting it, and start searching for the people that you want to be influenced by and who they're influenced by, and keep moving in that direction. Find the podcast, talk to your friends about it, create a statement, a mission statement of who the person that you're going to be. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to start creating some crazy traction, just like Brian did. How long did that take you to get to that like full awareness, right? If people are thinking and they're starting to get excited with your storyline, from the recognition, right, the awareness of it, to actually making the move, how long did that take? And was there any other steps other than just the podcast that you took that we've talked about so far, that you utilized?
Yeah, so I would say it probably took me about a year or two to really kind of start internalizing some of this information. I am a doer kind of by nature, though, so I did get the ball rolling and kind of forced myself to even just reach out to June and Francesco to say, hey guys, like, you want to start thinking about a business? And those first conversations when you're thinking about starting a business, it's all kind of talk in the beginning,
Sure.
but as the dates kind of go and the months kind of pass by, it starts to get a little bit clearer and clearer and clearer. For me, I was really thinking about this idea of, who are, you're the function of the 5 people closest to you, right? And if those 5 people aren't in alignment with who you want to become, then you need to change it. And so for me, I actually found the podcasts as a really powerful way to almost make brand new best friends in my ear. Like I had Gary Vee in my ear every day. I had Joe Rogan in my ear every day, James Altucher in my ear every single day. These are my boys, right? Like I've never had a conversation with them,
Yeah.
but I'm listening to the stuff they say. I'm like, you know what? I want to be more like these guys. And even on interviews I would hear, if I discovered someone who was interesting or inspiring, I'm looking them up. I'm listening to hear them talk, because the more, to your point about the words matter and the things that we hear matter, the more you can hear positivity in your life, the more optimistic you are going to be as a person. And it is a process, right? Like I'm still going through this whole thing. I still listen to podcasts for inspiration, maybe not so much as I used to, because now I'm kind of more in the technical stage where I'm just trying to learn and learn and learn.
Yeah.
But there are moments where I still need inspiration and motivation. And it keeps me set on my North Star that I need to lean into my authenticity and continue discovering who I am. It's a lifelong process.
Man. And that lifelong process can feel exhausting when you're not getting traction. But one of the things that I tell people often is action over anxiety, right? Too often people feel like they got to align the stars to get moving.
Sure.
It's like, no, you get moving. And then if you run into a brick wall, you dust yourself off and you go, oh, don't run into the brick wall, just go around it. and that started with
Sure.
you just being able to make a single phone call,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that was there was a moment where there was like, I'm going to listen to this podcast. I'm going to call this friend. I'm going to write this down, where there's that change or that momentum that you started to create, right?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, and I would also add to, the time that we put into things are also a good reflection just to see kind of where we're at today.
Yeah.
Like if you show me your calendar, I could kind of tell you what your priorities are. So if you're
Oh
spending
man.
time, and it's just
Yeah.
good ways to audit
Yes.
yourself, right? So if you look at your calendar, you're like, okay, well, I spend 10 hours a week working out. Well, are you an athlete? Are you a pro athlete? Or are you just doing this for fun? Well, if you're just doing it for fun, maybe you don't need to work out 10 hours a week. Are you watching 20 hours of Netflix a week? Are you crushing shows? Well, how is that getting further to your life? It's just kind of auditing and being just hypercritical of yourself. And I think this is why a lot of people should probably do therapy because, you know, it's hard to criticize yourself, right? Our ego kind
Yeah.
of gets in the way.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do need an objective point of view to kind of put an assault on our current behaviors,
Right.
right? And audit ourselves. But talking it out to anybody, whether it's your partner or a therapist or a best friend or just an objective viewer on your life, just to see like, hey, where am I messing up? Where can I go? Like, is this even working for me to improve my future?
Dude, so huge on that. I've had a therapist for over 10 years. I'm a coach myself, right? I go to other coaches. I've paid, tens of thousands of dollars to other coaches to
Hmm.
help me bring awareness. And, one of my coaches said to me, and when I'm like, man, okay, what's my next step? What's my next move with Icon and this and that? And he's like, you know what you do? You find more self-awareness. You just gotta go.
Hmm.
You gotta go do it.
Hmm.
And that was a pivotal point for me to go like, oh, continue my self-awareness. You know,
Hmm.
just sign up for the next program. Maybe you're going to get some out of it. Maybe you're not going to get a ton out of it. Maybe you're going to get massive things out of it. But it allows you to continue with that self-awareness. Because if we're not moving forward with that, we're not creating objectives and subjective viewpoints, then we're going to naturally fall back instead of fall forward, right?
Hmm. Absolutely.
Man. So we got about 6 more minutes, and so what I want to bring to the forefront is you're very in tune with your self awareness, and other people not so much. So how would you tell? What suggestions would you give to people if they're like, you know what, I really was inspired by what Brian's saying here. I'm just not sure how to get started. And we've talked about a couple different things in here. But for you and maybe to your clients, right? When you talk to your clients and so on and so forth, right? Owning a gym, you're a therapist as it is. What would you suggest to people to start sharpening that self-awareness?
Yeah, so I think the best exercise, and I believe you may have done this with Marcus as well, is writing out your eulogy, right? It's a really uncomfortable exercise to do. Actually pretending that you passed away, and if you were on the altar, kind of speaking the words of a fallen Brian Velez or fallen, Joel.
Yeah.
What do you want? What's the story that you want to be told? How are you going to be remembered? Did you have a wife? Did you have a family? Were you a pillar in your community? What projects did you do? How did you add value to the world, to society? Writing down your eulogy, it's a really weird and it could probably take you a couple days to even just flush something out. And just revisiting that consistently, I think is a beautiful exercise to do. It can really kind of get you more aligned with your North Star and help you lean into your authenticity for sure.
Oh, man, that's so huge. It's that starting with the end in mind,
Hmm.
right? Everybody's just like kind
Reverse
of like
engineering.
reverse engineering, right? It's like everybody's just going, I'm stuck in my job. It's like, okay, well, what about 10 years from now? Are you still stuck? Right?
Sure.
What do you see in 20 years, 30 years, 50 years? What's the legacy you want to leave behind? What are your kids going to be like? What are your family going to say about you, your friends? What's the main values that you want to be able to say, oh man, without a doubt, Brian was an incredible lover. Like he just loved the crap out of everybody. Or Brian was
Sure.
such a hard worker. Are we living to that value of that core value of, oh, I'm doing that every day, or am I not? You know?
Sure. And it's interesting too because for many people, life is so nearsighted, right? We look at life as if it's just right in front of our face, but we fail to realize that there's so much past in the future. There's a compounding effect to the habits that we install today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if I ate healthy and worked out 3 days a week for the rest of my life, by the time I'm 80, I'm going to be pretty healthy,
Yeah.
right? God forbid
Yes.
anything happened to me, all things considered. But there's a compounding effect on a positive way and a negative way. So the faster we can kind of overcome our demons, the more we can just kind of take advantage of the compounding effect of life. Life is so long.
Yeah.
People think you have to succeed at 20 or 30 or 40. There is no timeline to any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you have to first overcome the negative self-talk, the confidence, the envy, the greed, all these, deadly sins to be fair, right? We
Yeah.
have to overcome this at some level if we want to grow as a person. And once we kind of get to the other side, the rest is just compounding after that. It's freestyling from there. So that's kind of what I would leave with you guys.
Man, that's such good stuff, dude. And is there a single book out there that you would suggest that you maybe read that kind of, or any other piece of material that really
Sure.
got you going? That somebody could be like, dude, read this book. This is really going to get you going, or something that you Google, or so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I was actually raised Roman Catholic, so this is going to be a weird answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I recently read Buddhism Without Beliefs. I read it last year. Stephen Batchelor,
Mm-hmm.
Buddhism Without Beliefs. It's about secular Buddhism, and if people who aren't familiar with Buddhism, they think of the Buddha and kind of being this secularism is the absence of a God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really, most religions, monotheistic religions, your life is kind of dependent on the function of God.
Mm-hmm.
In Buddhism or secular Buddhism, your life is dependent on you. You are in
Mm-hmm.
full control.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's good or bad in your life is your fault. It's almost like Jocko's extreme
Extreme
ownership,
ownership. Yeah, that's a
right?
good one.
Completely just taking control, right? So everything that happened that's good to you or bad to you, it's not because of a God. It's not because of anything happening. It's because you made it happen.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of reframed my positioning, kind of how my perspective on life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it really kind of gets you to question certain things that happen with you. And the more we question, the more we can learn, right? The more open-minded we are to learning new things, the more we can continue to grow. So, Buddhism Without Beliefs by far is probably one of the most influential books I've kind of read over the past few years.
Because it helped you to be able to take ownership of where you're at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And
Got
just
it.
questioning in general is kind of a foundational element of what I do on a daily basis. I'm always questioning everything. And
Yeah.
it's not to be, I'm not to be, not, I am a cynic in a way, but I am also optimistic. It's really questioning to understand. And the more we can understand, even if it goes against our entrenched beliefs, the
Mm-hmm.
more we can learn and kind of move forward from that.
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
So to recap, guys, what we talked about today, to be able to give you tangible stuff to be able to walk away from and start making changes right now. First, it starts with what Brian said. What's coming out from below your nose? What are you thinking, saying, acting, and then the habits that you create? We've talked about this before. It starts with your thoughts. Then it goes to your words. Your words become your actions. Your actions become your habits. And like Brian talked about, will eventually become your legacy. And it starts with just the way that you're thinking. A great way to be able to do that is write down all the limiting factors that are currently that you're facing in your life right now. It doesn't matter what it is. Set a clock for 2 to 3 minutes and just go. Then turn them on their ass by going, hey, if I don't have money, that's my feeling, that's my limiting factor. Start creating daily affirmations about the abundance of money that you do have. This will start changing and priming your subconscious and your mindset to start believing, truly believing, like listening to 100 episodes, that you're going to be making a change. Brian also talked about being able to write out your eulogy. I've done it myself. I've also written out a legacy, two similar kind of ways. And that's something that we do in the 12-week icon. We dive into create a hero story, which is a little bit different than a eulogy, but the same concept is to be able to start with the end in mind. Write down your eulogy and what you want to be remembered by, as if you were speaking yourself at your own funeral. Then take a look at what's coming in, both in your ears and your eyes. What are you receiving? Like Brian said, he started switching and changing. He started making best friends with podcasts. Those are his boys. And you can do the same thing. Take a look at your podcasts. Take a look at your Instagram. It's time to do an audit. You can also do this by taking a look at your calendar. What are you spending your time on? And if you don't have anything on your calendar, that's a whole nother conversation, guys. 12-week icon will get you locked in on being able to make sure that you have that discipline to be able to have a plan each day. And then also being able to audit your intake in your day. So really being able to be aware what is coming in, what is going out, being able to write out a eulogy, being able to recognize that self-talk, and being able to start making massive changes right now. Guys, get done with this and make a move. Right now, all you have to do is go to your Instagram and start deleting people that you don't want to listen to. If that's what you do just right now, in the next 5 minutes after this podcast, you will start creating momentum to start changing your life. Brian, did that cover most of the stuff, or is there anything else that came up that you want to leave with them?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely.
Rad.
Great job.
So how do people get a hold of you? You're on the East Coast. How do people get a hold of you? I know they're not going to most likely come to your gym if they're not living in Brooklyn, but you do also, you meet with people online via virtual. You do coaching, and you do financial and fitness coaching online. How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram. So you could get me at Brian and Velez on Instagram. You could also go to velez.nyc, which is my website. You can send me an email there, or we can actually schedule a call over Acuity. I'm actually in the middle of doing a few things, like starting a wealth management practice, as well as doing small business advising. So if you want to talk about personal fitness, business, financials, I'm your guy. So you can reach out to me over there.
Dude, you guys, this guy is incredibly smart, and it's just not his Ivy League education. It's his ability to be able to recognize, have the awareness to make the massive changes. I have known Brian under a year at this point, and I have watched him overcome a pandemic and to not only get through it, but actually succeed through it. And that takes a lot of guts, that takes a lot of brains and a lot of bronze to be able to get through it. Brian, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. You're an incredible dude. And I look forward to continuing our friendship and hopefully have you on the show another time.
Yeah, absolutely, Joel. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, that is it. Remember, if you liked this show, go ahead and like and subscribe to the Icon Fitness podcast. You can also head over to the Facebook page, the Icon Blueprint Facebook page. You can become a member there. Just ask to become a member. I'll toss you in there. You're going to get a bunch of great content along with these live feeds. Next week, where it's just going to be me rolling by myself before the following week after that, where I'm going to have another live guest, Callie. She is an awesome lady, and you're not going to want to miss that. Brian, I hope that your Jeep does not fall into the toxic waters and that you have a fantastic day, man.
Thank you. You too, brother.
See ya, brother. See ya.